I'm Eddie, the Skinhead Gourmet. Today we're going to be doing pork tenderloin with a rosemary Alright, so now we're going to start on the sauce for our pork. We're going to start 1/3 cup of low sodium soy sauce. You don't have to go low sodium, but with that much soy sauce, it is going to get a little bit on the overly salty side. It is pork, which is going to have a little bit of that flavor anyhow. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter and a full cup of raspberry preserves right out of the jar. Nothing special. You can get store brand. It's kind of the secret to making this sauce good. But we're going to stir these up, put them on the heat, and then we're going to go over the herbs. Alright, now that we've had our raspberry preserves, butter, and soy sauce starting to cook for a little bit, we're going to take what's going to be about 1 tablespoon worth of diced chives and rosemary. We're going to put them right into the pan. You just want to let it start to get hot before you add them. You just notice a little bit more strength and flavor than if you start them from cold. But you may also notice on my show we have a lot of fresh herbs on here. They're not that much to get at the store, but it's a whole lot cheaper and easier to have your own little herb garden. If you are cooking on a regular basis, you'll thank yourself if you get a little window box. Plus, there's just a joy that comes from growing herb. So this raspberry soy glaze, you're just going to want to let it get up to a very light boil, and then bring the heat down to low, and you're going to let it simmer. And you're going to want to stir often. You're going to want to reduce it down just a little bit, and you want to try to get this started before you put your pork on, because you're going to want to let the pork cook for a while before you glaze it, and you want this to just be able to handle a few minutes of heat and not a whole lot else. Well, now it's time to get started on the main event. We're going to take our pork tenderloin, we're going to lay it out, we're going to go through, trim off any fat or silver skin that's on there that's just going to take away from the flavor. And you just want, if you're doing a pork tenderloin, you just want to go for as lean as possible. We can add fat after the fact, but if you do it this way, you're going to end up with a tastier pork and somewhat healthy pork at that. But we're also going to take this tenderloin, since it's a little on the thick side, we're going to cut it in half so that we have 2 nice and even tenderloins. We're going to put about a tablespoon of butter in a skillet. We're going to get this cooked. Now, pan frying in a skillet isn't the be-all end-all as to how you can cook a pork tenderloin like this. That's the way I like to do it, just because it'll preserve a lot of the flavor and fats. But you can also do wonderful grilling this, or you can broil it in your oven, which will give you it'll be a much healthier way to go. You'll still have an excellent flavor, and just take a little bit longer. But one of the wonderful things about a pork tenderloin is you can play around with it, and if you're creative, you can usually cook it just about alright. Just want to make sure you get it up to at least about a medium to medium-well temperature, if not more. One of the nice things about having our pork tenderloin is that it's going to cook nice and fast. You can see just as it starts getting white with a little bit of brown on the edges, you're going to want to flip it over. It's already, you can tell, it's already cooking deep into the tenderloin itself. The pork will cook quick if you don't watch it. But once we let this sit for another minute or two, we're going to put our raspberry rosemary glaze to it and lower the heat, and then we're going to start putting it all together into a nice big thing. Our pork's just a little bit past medium, so we're going to lower the heat on it a little bit. We're going to take some of our glaze, we're just going to pour this right on. We're going to try to keep it on the top. It's going to fall off, but we just want to make sure there's a nice concentration. Because what we're going to want to do is let the entire piece of pork get coated, and we're just going to want this flavor to be everywhere. So we're lowering the heat. We're also going to cover this in a moment, and we're just going to let that cook for another 5 minutes or so, and we're going to start getting some really tasty pork out of it. Okay, so now while we have the pork finishing up, we're going to start putting our plate together. We're going to try to make this look a little nice. We're going to put all this work into it. We want to make a meal that looks as good as it's going to taste. So we're going to take some of our asparagus, lay it over some of this rice we have on the plate here. You're going to want to scoop up some of these nice little charred pieces of shallot now. Drain some of the oil out. Make sure you get them in there. It's going to make for a nice mix in texture as well as flavor. And on top of the rice, it's going to work wonderfully because we're going to put our cheese sauce over top of both. Alright, so we got our plates set. We've got a piece of lettuce down to put the pork on top of. We've got some rice that we have cooked. We've got our asparagus with a little bit of shallot on top of it. And we're going to take some of that blue cheese sauce we made. We're going to run that right over the asparagus and put a little bit over top of the rice. It's going to soak down. It's going to make all of this taste fantastic, and it's going to play very nicely off of the raspberry rosemary glaze on the pork. Alright, next we're going to take a little bit of our raspberry rosemary glaze we had put aside. We're just going to run this down the lettuce here because we're going to be putting the pork on top of it, so it'll be nice to almost work as a glue to keep it in place. Make the plate look a little bit more colorful and give you a little bit of something to dip your pork in. Also going to run just a tiny little bit across the rice and asparagus. Not only is it going to look dynamic on the plate, but it's also going to just tie the entire meal together with the one main flavor. Now that your pork is done, we're going to grab this nice sharp knife. We're going to cut this up a little bit and get ready to pop it on the plate. I like to make a few cuts on what they call a bias. It's a little bit of an angle. And we're just going to want to cut this into a few pieces all about the same size, so then we can stand them up on the plate and give it a nice, somewhat modern look about it. So we're just going to want to take our pork and start lining them up, and it's nice this way you can show the temperature on the inside to show how cooked they are. It looks nice and it's a little different.
Take me home.